The day Musa spoke about the meat, my hands started shaking before the plate touched the table. I was already sweating under the canopy at my sister's wedding when I saw it coming. Musa did what he always did. He opened his plate, used his spoon, and gently pushed the meat aside like it could bite him. One piece, two pieces, neat and careful. People around us were laughing, chewing, talking with full mouths. Then the child spoke. Small voice, clear voice, the kind of voice that does not know how to be careful. "Why don't you eat meat?" My chest tightened. I knew that question. I had been dodging it for years. Before Musa could answer, my mind ran ahead of him, begging him to stay quiet. Please do not say it here, not today, not in front of food and joy and noise. But Musa lifted his head, and everything changed. That is how the story started for everybody else, but for me it started many years before that day. I am Zainab. I am Musa's wife. I have watched this man remove meat from his food for almost 15 years. I married him knowing he did not eat meat, but I did not know why. At first I thought it was money, then I thought it was health. Then people started calling him holy, and I let them. It made life easier. In our house, I cooked meat. Goat meat, fish, chicken. I served him last because he liked it that way. When he served himself, he would remove the meat and drop it inside my plate or the children's plate. If I asked him, he would smile and say he was okay. I learned not to push. In Nigeria, people do not like silence around food. They want stories, they want reasons, they want jokes. Musa gave none, so people made their own. They said he was fasting every day. They said he took a vow. They said he saw something in a dream. One woman even told me to hold him tight because holy men can leave home easily. I laughed and thanked her. But sometimes at night, when the children were asleep, I would watch Musa eat plain rice with stew and no meat, and I would feel fear sitting beside me. Not fear of hunger, fear of memory. Some people do not talk because they are shy. Some people do not talk because their mouth is heavy with things that never leave. Musa was that kind of man. The first 10 seconds of that wedding was when I knew he was tired of carrying it alone. The boy was still looking at him. People were still smiling, waiting for a joke or a soft answer. I reached for Musa's knee under the table, pressing it gently like we practiced without words. "Leave it, please." Musa did not look at me. He looked at the child. His eyes were calm, but his face was old. When he opened his mouth, I knew the past had finally stood up to speak, and I was not ready. When Musa started talking, the wedding disappeared for me. I could still see the chairs, the food, and the people moving around, but my mind was no longer there. I was pulled backward into a place I had never been, but somehow always feared. He said, "When I was your age, my father brought meat only on Sundays." I felt my throat burn. I had heard him mention his father before, but only small stories. Never food. Never hunger. Musa said they were many children, and the meat was always small. He said hunger lived in their house like another person, always present, always waiting. As he spoke, I watched the faces around the table change. Smiles fell, hands slowed down, people stopped chewing. The child leaned closer, like the story was calling him. Musa said, one Sunday his father shared the meat. He said he was sitting close, and his hand was faster than his thinking. He took the last piece. My heart started beating loud. I wanted to stand up. I wanted to stop him, but my body refused to move. He said his younger brother was sick and sleeping. He said nobody woke him up to eat. He said the meat was sweet in his mouth. That word sweet hit me like a slap. I looked at Musa. His voice was steady, but his eyes were far away. He was not seeing the wedding anymore. He was seeing a small room, a thin boy, a plate with nothing on it. He said that night his brother woke up crying and calling his name. Not calling their mother, not calling their father, calling him. At that point, I felt tears push into my eyes, but I held 'em back. Crying in public is easy. Understanding is harder. Musa said his brother did not see mourning. Somebody at the table sucked in breath. Another person whispered Jesus under their breath. The band played somewhere, but it felt wrong, like noise in a hospital. Musa said he was not the reason his brother died. He said hunger killed him. He said sickness helped, but the meat stayed with him. I finally understood something then. This was not about food. It was about choice. About the day a child chose himself because he was hungry and learned that hunger can follow you forever. I remembered all the times I had pushed meat into Musa's plate and he had quietly returned it. I remembered the way he watched the children eat, not with desire, but with careful eyes, counting, making sure everybody had enough. I remembered how he never took the biggest piece. He said he made a promise as a boy that if eating meat would ever make him forget his brother, then he would rather not eat it again. The child was quiet now, too quiet for his age. He was staring at Musa like adults stare at judges. The table stayed silent. Even the people who did not hear the full story could feel something heavy had landed. I felt exposed, like my husband had opened a door I did not know existed and let strangers walk into a room I had only seen from outside. But inside that fear was something else. Respect. Not the kind people gave him before because they thought he was holy. This was deeper. This was painful. Musa did not cry. He did not raise his voice. He just told the truth and placed it gently on the table, the way he always placed meat aside. I knew then that his silence all these years was not weakness. It was control. And I knew the story was not over, because stories like this do not end when the talking stops. After Musa finished talking, nobody rushed to speak. Silence stayed with us like it paid for a seat. I felt many eyes on me, waiting to see what the wife would do, how she would react now that her husband had broken open his past in public. I kept my face calm, but inside me, something was breaking and settling at the same time. The child slowly pushed the meat on his plate toward Musa. His small hands shook. He said, "You can give it to someone else." That simple act did more than any long prayer could have done. It showed that the story had entered him. It had changed something. Musa smiled at the boy. Not the small, polite smile he gave people, but a tired one, like a man putting down a heavy load. He said, "He already does." People started breathing again. Someone cleared their throat. Another person reached for water. But the mood had shifted. Food was still on the table, but nobody was eating with the same joy. I looked around and noticed small things. A woman tearing her meat into smaller pieces before eating. A man calling a child to come and take his own. People were not looking at Musa anymore. They were looking at themselves. The wedding continued, but slower around us. Later, when Musa stood up to go wash his hands, a man stopped him and held his arm. The man said, "Thank you." Nothing more. Musa nodded and moved on. That was when I realized how heavy the story had been in Musa's body all these years. He had been carrying it quietly, not asking for pity, not asking for praise, just living around it. When we got home that night, the children were already asleep. The house was quiet. I warmed the remaining food and placed it on the table. Out of habit, I served Musa last. He sat down and opened his plate. There was fish inside the stew. He picked it out and dropped it into my plate. For the first time, I did not let it stay there. I pushed it back to his side. He looked at me surprised. His eyes asked a question without sound. I told him I wanted to understand. Not later, not another time, now. Musa rested his hands on the table. He looked tired but lighter. He said he had always been afraid that if he spoke, people would think he was pretending, or worse, they would turn his pain into something to gossip about. He said silence was safer. I told him silence had kept me outside too. That was the first time we talked fully about his brother, about their house, about the smell of hunger, about the way Sundays felt like hope and fear mixed together. Musa said sometimes he still dreamed of that night. He said sometimes he woke up hearing his brother call his name. I reached for his hand. This time I did not pull away. I realized something then. Marriage is not only about love. It is about the stories we hide and the moment we choose to let someone else carry them with us. That night, Musa did not eat meat, but he did not eat alone. The days after the wedding felt different, even though nothing around us had changed. The same street noise, the same early morning calls to prayer, the same children running in and out of the compound. But inside our house, the air had shifted. People started greeting Musa with softer voices, not the joking respect they used to show him before, but a careful one. Some did not talk about the wedding at all. Others brought it up slowly, like touching a wound to see if it still hurt. One afternoon, a woman from the next compound came to our door with a plate of food, big plate, plenty rice, plenty meat. She said she cooked extra and did not want it to waste. I knew that excuse. I accepted the plate and thanked her. When I turned back, I saw Musa watching from the chair. He did not look away. I served the food as usual. When Musa reached for his plate, he stopped. He did not touch the spoon. He just stared at the meat for a long time. I waited. This time I did not rush to remove it for him. He finally picked the spoon and moved the meat aside, but his hand was slower than before. Later that evening, Musa told me something he had never said before. He said he was tired. Not tired of refusing meat, tired of being strong alone. He said since the wedding, memories had been coming back without asking. His brother's face, the sound of crying, the smell of food in that small room. He said speaking out had opened a door, and now his past was walking around freely. I listened without fixing anything. Some things do not need fixing. They need space. The next Sunday, I cooked soup like I always did. This time, I cooked less meat. I did not announce it. I just did it. When the children noticed, they asked why the meat was small. I told them everybody would still eat. Musa looked at me then, really looked at me. I could see questions in his eyes. I did not answer them. After we ate, I packed the remaining meat into a small container and sent the children to give it to a family down the street. The mother there had been sick for weeks. When the children returned, Musa was quiet. That night, he told me something else. He said for the first time he did not feel like his choice was only about punishment. He said it felt like sharing. I understood then that his refusal had always been a form of control, a way to make sure he never chose himself over another person again. But now, slowly, it was becoming something else. Not fear, not guilt, care. I lay beside him that night, listening to his breathing. For many years I had respected his silence, but now I respected his struggle even more. Some stories change the people who hear 'em. Some stories change the people who tell 'em. And some stories change the people who live with 'em every day. Time did not rush us after that. Life returned to its normal speed, but we were not the same people inside it. Musa still did not eat meat, but now his silence felt different. It was no longer a wall. It was a door left open. One evening, weeks after the wedding, our youngest child asked a question while we were eating. The question was simple and careless, the way children ask things without fear. "Why does Baba not eat meat?" I froze, waiting for Musa to hide again, but he did not. He wiped his hands and looked at the children. He did not tell the full story. He did not need to. He said, "Sometimes food reminds people of hard days, and when that happens, you choose kindness instead." The children nodded and went back to eating. That was enough for them. That night, after they slept, Musa told me he had been thinking about his brother differently, not only as the boy he lost, but as the boy who taught him something early. He said his brother taught him that hunger can make people do things they never forget, and that remembering is not meant to punish, but to guide. Months later, during another family gathering, meat was shared again. This time, nobody joked. Nobody called Musa holy. People served themselves more carefully. Some even asked quietly who else had not eaten yet. I watched all of it and felt something like peace. One afternoon, I cooked pepper soup. The smell filled the house. Musa sat at the table, waiting. I served him, and like always, there was meat in the bowl. He stared at it. I did not move. After a long time, Musa took the spoon and pushed the meat toward the center of the table. He did not give it to me. He did not give it to the children. He called a neighbor's child who often came to our house after school. The child came and sat. Musa placed the bowl in front of him. The child ate with joy. Musa watched, calm. That was when I understood the full shape of his journey. He was no longer running from meat. He was walking toward meaning. That night, Musa told me something that surprised me. He said one day he might eat meat again, not because the past had disappeared, but because he would know how to hold it without fear. I did not rush him. Healing that is rushed breaks easily. I realized then that some choices start as pain and later turn into purpose. Some rules we make for ourselves are not cages, they are guides until we are ready to walk freely. Musa never said his brother's name aloud, but in the way he shared, in the way he waited, in the way he made space for others, his brother lived. And in our house, food was no longer just food. It became memory, care, and a quiet promise kept every day.